Hello and welcome back to 33 Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Michael Abney, and today I'm joined by Andy. Andy is the founder and CEO at DoGood. We're exploring today what it really means to build something that serves without losing yourself in the process. Andy, welcome to the pod. How are you doing today?
Hey, Michael, thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
It is my pleasure. I'm really excited to have this conversation. You've built inside of systems that reward growth, scale, and profit. And at some point along the way, something in you started to ask different questions, not how you're going to win the game, but whether the game itself is aligned with what you are actually believing. Now you're building something that sits right in the middle of that tension that I think a lot of us feel between profit and purpose, between structure and surface. So this is a perfect place to start off with asking you our first question, which is, what transformation are you going through right now in the middle of what you're building?
Welcome back to the conversation.
Yeah, as the founder and CEO of DoGood, our mission is profit with purpose. And I think the transformation that I'm going through on a daily basis is really swimming upstream against what the capitalistic market, what that embodies and what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I am a capitalist by nature, meaning that I believe in the economic system of capitalism, rewards, incentives, but I don't believe it's a means to an end. It's not. It was never meant to be just about money and self-serving. It was meant to drive human flourishing in a marketplace. It was meant to serve others. And I think that transformation for me is a daily struggle because we live in a world that really rewards profit and gain at any expense. And I think that there's something terribly broken in that system.
Yeah, and it's becoming every day more and more evident about that brokenness. And I was thinking about it. I was really present to what I was told growing up about how it was and the nonprofit, how the sectors really weren't anywhere connected and they were two different things. It's almost like you had to make a choice and there were only two that you could make. That when I talked to you, oh my God, you're making another choice. You're like literally creating something. It gave me goosebumps when I was thinking about it, about the power of not accepting what is been given to us as the way it's supposed to be, how you're actually shifting in real time. And that's what excites me the most about today's conversation. I'm wondering, like, in your journey of this, where have you noticed resistance or things that you've had to let go to be where you're at today in this middle? You're creating a new lane.
Yeah, no, and to your point, it's we participate in a society that has a lot of misconceptions and brokenness. And I think to answer your question is to how do I reframe myself and kind of break these chains of just lies, to be honest. And for me, it's really being in a system where, hey, like it was really this, remember, like, it's like Wolf of Wall Street. You pick money and, you're
Yeah,
wild, successful, or you become a tree hugging hippie that's poor and suffers, right? That was kind of the old.
totally. It's true. It's how that it was positioned. Like even me having the energy side to myself and being in that community for 30 years, it's amazing how many people think that that's part of being energetic or human is to be, oh, I don't want money. Or that story is about money. And what you're bringing to the table is it can be both, kid. It could be, you know, maybe something we haven't even thought of before about how we relate to money, service, and what we're building today, because that's been my focus for the last 2 years is get a pulse of what's happening in real time. And it's changing and evolving in just such a beautiful way. I'm so glad we're here having this conversation today.
Yeah, just to add to that, I just want to be very clear here. It's I don't believe in that. I was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. I now live in New York City. I like nice things. I like to travel. I like to eat out. Enjoy the finer things of life. It doesn't define me, but now that I want to do good, I have to be poor and suffer. I just don't believe in that, right? You look and the most basic things from a societal standpoint is, when we give philanthropic dollars or a donation and to an organization, when we find out that the CEO of that organization is making too much money, like society is up in arms. Like they're like, what the hell? Like that person is,
Yes.
they should be poor and suffer and they shouldn't. But in the marketplace, if they choose to leave that company and go work at a Google or I don't know, an Exxon, whatever company, and they make millions of dollars, we don't have any problem with that. And then they can just donate. So then we're rewarding them to in a capitalistic system rather than participating in solving some of the biggest problems in the world. Like, you know what I mean? Like the economics should back out. Like, and it's like, why aren't we paying, the most talented people in the world to solve the biggest problems in the world, like hunger or whatever it might be? And that's
Yes.
one example of a broken system and one example of how I was in this system and, participating in it because I had those same things. The most practical thing is me as a Christian, when I go to church, when I find out that the pastor is making a salary and how much are they making, that can be relatable to anybody. We have this false belief that if you're doing good, you need to be poor and suffer in order to
Mhm.
be a true servant. I just don't believe in that system. So much of what we're building and what we're trying to do in regards to having these conversations as well is really change the narrative and or at least at the very least challenge that narrative.
I mean, there's always, you can find evidence of anything at any given point, but there is the preacher with the big church. There's no conversation about how it should be agreement about how we can structure things or have it work in what we're talking about here, making it work from a different perspective where we got more choices than just one or two that we were given. Where does this come from? This because I could feel this coming from within you. So where did this drive come from that you have this perspective that you're now shaping the world with? Because
Yeah.
it just didn't happen. It had to come from somewhere. Are you aware of that connection? Like what's driving you right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to it. And it wasn't like a singular thing, like most things in life. It was a journey. We're shaped and molded by truths and decisions that we make over time, not just, yes, of course, there are pivotal moments. But for me personally, like faith is the foundation of my life, right? Like it's the driving force. That said, like I grew up in a very poor house. My father was a pastor. I essentially grew up in a nonprofit home and, he was, we lived that. Right? It was like be poor and suffer to do good and serve your community. And as they were both my parents were immigrants from Korea and they built a church in the 80s where they served the local Korean immigrant community, right? And during that time, it was really like that's all you had, that community as, immigrants in a new country. And when I think about that, all of those things shaped me, right? And again, my brother, oldest brother, I'm the youngest of three, was disabled, had a really, tough childhood, was born with cerebral palsy and like just like kind of being exposed to kind of like, immigrant parents with a child in need, like with special needs, like it was just really kind of shaped me. But ultimately, like for me in my journey, like I was always just a hustler, right? Like I started my first company when I was 14. I was like, well, if we're poor, I need to do something about this, right? Like, cause I don't want to be poor, right? Like the whole American dream thing. Like I couldn't find a job, so I started my own company. I did painting on address numbers of the curb of the streets. I grew that business to like 21 employees. I expanded it to 3 cities, and that kind of really set my path towards entrepreneurship. And long story short, I've had about 7 different startups, some successful, some really difficult learning experiences and expensive ones. Ultimately, I just had this idea like that I was going to make a shit ton of money and then I'll give back. Right? Like,
Yes.
I've always had
Yes.
this conviction to give back, but it was like, again, my approach to it was very from a societal standpoint, where society, again, like the Bill Gates, you make your billions of dollars and then you create your foundation and you give back, right? Like, and I was pretty much like, whether it was conscious or subconscious, like that was a journey and that was the mindset that I've had. And about 7 years ago, like I had this really kind of big God moment where God convicted me, where it was like, hey, what you spend your time on should reflect your values and should reflect the kingdom. And my values is that I believe that we are meant to make the world a better place, that human flourishing is at the center of it. Right. And what I spend all my time and effort on is building companies and work, right? It's where I find deep joy, and I love what I do. I love the hustle. I love, whatever you want to call it. And that's where it really put me on this journey of like, all right, what does that look like? How does it, how is my posture? How is my approach going to be different? And here I am 7 years like into it and like building this company. But it's been through that process, it's just been a journey of like, figuring things out, right? Like and really working on myself and asking the difficult questions of like, what do I need to change? What do I need to kind of constantly work on? And these conversations.
What were those beginning things when you went from hustle, epiphany, moving in a different, a different timeline, different direction with where you were taking? Because that hustle, that energy of the hustle, that hustle is a word that we label it with, but like you still have that energy that used to be labeled hustle, but it's now something different. What do you call it now? It can't be hustle.
I mean, it definitely is like, but it's different, right? Like there's much more
Yeah.
deeper meaning and purpose, right? Oftentimes I think hustle, especially when I was younger, I can only speak from my lens. Hustle was very transactional, right? It was like, waking up early in the morning so I can achieve XYZ, right? Like, and it was like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do A to get B, right? And to your point, like hustle looks very different for me now. I'm trying to think of the right word, but essentially it's like my why drives me so much deeper than just a transaction, right? Like, and the
Yeah.
the result is no longer the mission; it's the process. That is a very different approach to quote unquote hustle, right? Like Simon Sinek talks about it a lot. Like you start with the why, and it's like what he calls the infinite game, which I think ultimately is like the ultimate hustle, right? Like what's the infinite game, right? He articulates it beautifully, and I very much agree with that approach. It's like it's the process of becoming and being rather than the result itself. I am not the savior of this world. Okay, then how am I participating in to shape it in any way or form and within the context of my life and my reach and impact? I hope that reach and impact is great and has massive magnitude, but even if it doesn't change what I'm going to be doing and what I believe in today and this journey. And I think ultimately that is the difference, right? Where when I was younger and like my pursuit from a capitalistic standpoint was so transactional, it was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make X amount of money or get X, whatever XYZ result. I think now that hustle is like, how am I shaping one, how am I being formed myself through this process, right? Whether you call it sanctification, growing as a servant based leader, serving my team, how am I being shaped? And then two, it's like, how am I participating in something rather than being just focused so much on the outcome that I'm not focused on the journey itself? I hope that answers your question.
Does. And it also like, this is so, you're bringing all this to the nonprofit space, mixing it all up. I'm sure you have like peer group of other like we all connect with each other. What has been the feedback, or have you other people feel the same way? Is this something that you see can grow, or how do you see yourself inside of what you're doing, not just for yourself, but you know, this is infectious. We're all looking for solutions. We're all looking for, okay, I get it. It's breaking down. Things are changing at a rapid rate. I don't understand everything, but I really am getting, even me, like, I want to know what's next. I want to start thinking about solutions. I don't want to I've looked at the problem long enough. I want to start talking with people that are ready to build other things that are like for it's emerging. And I get to do that every day, which is really, really cool. But it's really awesome to see like somebody that actually has that faith that's added to it, that it's not just about a dollar or a number or a metrics. You're talking about impact and outcomes. And I'm just curious, like how that's landing with your peer group, and can you see that reflected back in, what are you hearing?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to that. I'm gonna answer that question in a few different ways. One, I do not like working in a nonprofit space, which is kind of a shocker, right? Like it's just a very broken system. And my peers, people that are in the nonprofit or social impact space, they will the vast majority will kind of support the statement here where it's like, again, the word nonprofit is detrimental to the industry itself. Again, it's so broken. Right? Like everyone's like giving has been fixed at about 2% GDP the last, 40 plus years that it's been tracked. Like you look at living wages to like salaries within the nonprofit, like everyone's like just trying to survive. Like I don't want to take away from the reality of Maslow's hierarchy of need. We need to survive. Like we have bills, like people have kids, eat, you need to have clothes on your back. And obviously, like those pressures do not go away. And money and financial things always tends to be the number one struggle bus, right? That everyone is on, right? Like, and that is the reality of the situation. So then it's not like just because you're in the nonprofit space or the social impact space, you feel warm and fuzzy all the time, right? That's not the reality, right? It's work. It's real work that
Yeah.
matters. And I think like for me, having not been in that space, always being an entrepreneur, being in tech, growing up in Silicon Valley in that space, making the shift to understand a nonprofit space is still so painful, right? Like, I come from tech. I wanted everything yesterday. Everything's data driven. The nonprofit space just does not work like that. It takes like 2 weeks to get an email response, right? Like it's not how I operate. It's not how I run a business.
Hmm.
But again,
Hmm.
it's reflective of a systemic problem within the industry itself, right? That said, it's like, yes, those are my peers, but also that's not the space I want to play in. That's not the space I want to build. It's a space that I want to serve and help heal from the inside out. But like we're trying to do things differently, and it's hard to do that if you're in the mess itself, right? Like you have to kind of remove yourself and do things differently, or you get stuck within the system itself, and you become, a victim to what that system is, right?
How do you keep yourself out of that, though? How do you keep yourself out of
Yeah.
that?
So then again, I think like for us, it's like, how do we bridge the gap between profit and purpose? Right. Like for me, then it's like where the space that we're participating creating is like really in the capitalistic market. Right. Again, I believe in capitalism. It is a system that is worked too well, if anything. Right. Like, profit and gains, like all of those things. So then it's like, how do we bridge the gap between the nonprofit and the for-profit? Because for us, we're not trying to add to the problems or compete within the mess of that problem. We're trying to make the pie bigger. So some basic things is that like nonprofits, if giving has been fixed at about 2% GDP, everyone's fighting over the same piece of pie, right? They're going after the same donors. They're applying for the same grants. So it creates a very unhealthy competition ecosystem, right? That is very scarcity driven. Again, like scarcity mindsets, like all of those things. It's like, all right, when we look at that problem from a systemic level, we're like, how do we make the pie bigger? There's no shortage of like resources and wealth in the for-profit market. Tie this back to your question. It's like, how do we bridge that gap? What does profit and purpose look like? Not from a figurative standpoint, from an actual practical, like executable standpoint, right? And that includes like people, right? Like there's so many young people that I meet with that say to me like literally, I would love to do what you're doing or work in your industry. I just can't afford to do that. Right. Like, and they genuinely mean that. Like, they would love to do it, but they just can't afford it. If you have an offer from some major tech company that's offering you, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then you have this nonprofit that's giving you like a fraction of that, like, it's really difficult to like make that choice and sacrifice. It actually is more effective and beneficial if you pick the corporate job and just donate, which is again a part of the
Well,
broken.
that's the model that we've been giving. Because
Exactly.
based off of what you said at the beginning, like we were taught to stack and, rack, and at the end of the day, then you give back. And like I'm telling you, it doesn't work that. I mean, it doesn't work that way. It does not work that way, because you end up and you you give them back, but you're like, I've given my whole life to different organizations, but it was money and some things on time. And now I'm more community based. But when I was in the grind of it, no, you're 1,000% in that mode because you're so busy doing that that you're not really connected to the thing that you're actually trying to support, or there was no bridge at all back then. And now
Exactly.
having to talk about this, like hearing you, it begs the question of how do you shift the context, because context is decisive, and there maybe not be one because what the context is what the guy said, I can't go because I can't afford it. So somewhere at the top of this bubble that we all live in, there has to be another conversation that says we've got to redefine that, which is what you're having. But I'm curious about at what point does that actually shift and start? Okay, now I'm building with this messaging too. It's almost got to have some marketing to it to
Yeah, of
be
course.
effective to where it could be the word I'm looking for is enrollable. Like
Mm,
create something that something is enrollable to something. It's like, yeah, I want to be a part of that. And even open the door to the conversation that we're all really, at the end of the day, when we look for solutions, if we're not really conscious and have that deep faith and trust, which it's hard to do in the world, but like if you don't, like it causes a disconnect and you lose your touch with there's something coming through us that's new. That means that we don't have anything to relate it to in the past, which makes us really super uncomfortable. And that's that's what you were making me think whenever you were talking about this space that you were creating and the uncomfortability of having these different types of conversations. But at some point, it has to gel into a movement where, like, I get what you're doing. I think it's amazing. That's why I couldn't wait to have you on the pod to talk about this. It's going to take, a tipping point of people that are in that space to really generate that, but it takes one ripple to start that effect. I'm curious about other companies that, or nonprofits, thinking of everybody as one entity. How do they really move from that space of trying to do good to actually connecting to actually doing the good?
yeah. I mean, great stuff. Great question. We are defined by our actions, not our intentions. I genuinely believe that everyone wants to do good, right? Like, but there is a massive gap between our intention and our action. And that's where, again, one of the beauties of capitalism is that you give economic incentives and people are willing to do what they don't want to do to get that incentive, right? And that's based on human needs, like value systems, all of those different things. So
Boom.
I think again, the idea of profit with purpose was really figuring out systems that allow it to like human nature is human nature. We're designed and built in a certain way. It's like we're not as complicated as we are. We're pretty simple and straightforward, right? Like we need to build systems that are again just really like stuff that already works. There's not solving rocket science, right? Like it's pretty basic and but to your point, it's timing is everything, right? Timing is everything, and I believe there's a shift that's happening in the marketplace right now. So to answer your question in regards to enrollment, what I believe in is that like with AI and this generation, Gen Z, over 78% say that they do not want to associate themselves with a brand or product that does not reflect their values, right? So, we've already seen this shift happening in the marketplace, lifestyle brands, or like it's no longer about the product, but what the product represents, right? So we've seen this shift happening already. And what that ultimately comes down to, what is the ultimate system of value? It's belief. It's humanity. It's serving humanity, right? And I think in a agentic world where machines are going to do the vast majority of everything that we don't need to do, that's quote unquote work or grunt work for humans, our biggest value as humans then is to be human, And I think this is a full circle moment of like technology is advancing so rapidly, right? Like, and obviously we know all of the buzzwords and like kind of the fears and things, but I also see the beauty and the opportunity in that is that like this is a full circle moment where our humanity is the most valuable thing. And I think our humanity in
Yeah.
practice, right?
Yeah.
It is servitude. Being able to
Yeah.
serve others to do good is the most human thing that we can do. It's the most valuable thing that we can do, right? And that enrollment, again, timing is the market shifting, right? Like you have the arguments of like this AI utopia, you have the argument of like this AI doom. Obviously, like most things, it's like you're somewhere in the middle there. But I think the beauty and the opportunity for enrollment is that this market is shifting. The younger generation who are going to be creating this marketplace and also the biggest transfer of wealth happening. So this is not just some theoretical things. Like look at all of the data, the things, there's this massive shift happening in the marketplace. And this younger generation is more primed than ever to say that like, hey, giving back, doing good, like value system based marketplace, like they are primed to lead that. And what we're trying to do is create enough of a wedge and a kind of a launch platform to really allow that to thrive and happen as quickly and as like impactful as possible. Because again, like the future is it's here, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this, the I'm gonna stop there before I go on a tangent. But like, yeah, that I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. And in doing so, I'm enrolled. I'm enrolled in that you're right. It's going to take a conversation. It's going to take something that's actually, the something that it is taking is what's actually happening right now.
Amen
Is
to
that
that.
like, you know, yeah, like all of the things that we're perceiving unconsciously that we don't even know how we're perceiving that thing that we're all carrying around with us. It's within all of us, that little,
Yeah,
and, and we all know it. And, but like, how are we going to be on the other side of it or as we go through it? I think it's extraordinary just to even have the conversation and get your perspective of, you're handling this just amazing. Most people crack under this is an enormous amount of pressure. And I think you actually are using it to harness your movement, which is really cool. Somehow you're staying. It's your faith, isn't it? It's your faith.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Because then I see opportunity, right? Like, and for me as a believer, like I don't believe that God is absent from any of this, right? Like at the center of it, God wants human beings to flourish and thrive from a place of love, right? Not suffer, right? Which is the fundamental belief in everything that I'm describing and talking about, right? Like, and whether whoever's listening to this, whether they're a believer or not, that's something we can all agree upon. Like human flourishing should be
Yeah.
at the center of everything, right? Like love. Like it
Yeah.
sounds super corny and cheesy, but like what is human flourishing? Is to love people, right? Like is to serve people. And like, again, whatever your belief systems are, like, I think that's one thing that we can always agree upon, right?
Yeah. Thank you for bringing this conversation, like, making it real. It's one thing to have a concept of something and to hypothesize about something, but it's actually different to actually speak with somebody and talk about what you're doing in real time. It's a real, it's a real shift. I love all the openness that I'm now feeling in my mind. You're creating and how this could be merging into something that we can't even see yet, but we're in the right direction. We're understanding that the value that we used to place on the things that we created, it doesn't hold water anymore. It's us that's the value. And I think that that's really what we're all kind of scratching around, is that our systems were based off of all the things that we can create instead of the creator that was creating it, and the thing that's creating it through us, whatever we call that thing, that's irrelevant. It's
Yeah.
just that we can see each other as like, oh yeah, that thing that's coming through you, it's coming
Yeah.
through me. I don't give a shit about what we call it, but like I can feel the energy of it. And that's the most important part, and the synergy and the energy of it. I can
I
feel
love
it.
that.
So yes. And I do have goosebumps again. We're on a good Bro. Yeah. So I want to continue this conversation at some point in the future because it just feels open looped, but the producer in me wants to have a close. But like the reality is I'm going to just enjoy that you're in the world. And I know that. Yeah. That's my takeaway for today. Are you ready for your closing question?
I am. Let's go.
Okay. So what's still one place in your life, because we're all evolving, that you know that something needs to shift and you've just been waiting for the right conditions to do it?
Yeah. I mean, one, I think it's the daily struggles are the things that create the biggest shift. It's the little things that we do continuously that really move, and shape our life. And I call it the rhythm of life, right? One of the things that is top of mind for me right now is that I want my yeses to be greater and stronger than my nos. I want my yeses to be the thing that pulls me rather than I'm being shaped by all the things I say no to. And just to give some context to that, like as I get older, and I think just in society itself, like we're taught, like you look at all of these books, it's like say no to things, protect your time, protect your priority. And that is a natural inclination. And when I see older people, like if you look at the chart of loneliness, like people, the time that you spend with other people, it goes down drastically as you age, right? And a lot of that is shaped by like, I'm not going to see you, or I don't have time, or I'm too lazy, or whatever. All these no's really shape our life. And, as a startup, as an entrepreneur, I'm constantly having to say no to things in order to hyper focus and do things and build a company with goals in mind. But I'm like, man, I don't want I'm constantly just playing defense. Like my life is being shaped by all the things I'm like deprioritizing or saying no to. Mm, I don't want that. I want my life to be shaped and pulled by my yeses, by my conviction, by my desire to love God and love people. That to me is the strongest thing that's a motivator in my life. That gives me joy in my life, purpose and reason, not the no's, right? The no's just come naturally when my yeses are so deep convictions or such a priority that like, it's like, oh no, like this other thing is so valuable and so precious to me. Like, and I'm drawn to it. And it's like playing defense just feels natural, right? Because yeah, there's only so many hours in a day. There's only so many people I can see. So then it's like, how do we carve out time and space? And I don't want that to be driven by my nose. I want that to be driven by my yeses. And as my life gets fuller, building this company and just the demands of everything, I don't want to lose touch of that. And I feel very grateful to have that perspective. And it's something I've been praying about and meditating on. And I hope that other people can get some value out of that.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Thank you for sharing all of it. Yeah. I love where my brain's at right now. It's a beautiful thing. And thank you for bringing all the NYC realness with all of the background noise. I couldn't have put that in there any better. I really got the feel for it. So that's really cool. An extra bonus on today's show. I love it. So appreciate it. And we're going to continue the conversation. This is incredible. But thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom with all of our listeners. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate the time.
You are so welcome. Remember, guys, there's a moment where building stops being about proving something and starts being about honoring something. And that shift isn't loud. It's not always visible, but it changes everything about how we move through life, build our worlds, build our businesses, and build our lives and the relationships that we have. But today, maybe is the day to just start having a new conversation and a new perception about yourself, about changing the context about how you look at your life and how you value yourself. Remember, there is no right way. There's just one conscious choice after another. And we will see you all on the next one. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.